Good evening. I want to welcome you to another segment of Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Today is Tuesday, January the 16th, 2024. I hope everybody had a good weekend or extended weekend. And if you was off on Martin Luther King Day yesterday, if not, still, I wish, you had a good weekend and the start of your week is pretty good. I want to talk tonight, but before I get into the topic, go down, give me the thumbs up if you like the video. If you don't, you can give me the thumbs down, and also subscribe because those two things help me. Like I said, if you don't like the video, then you ain't got to do anything. But I like the thumbs up. That's a nice thing. That tells me you like the content that I'm giving you. But tonight's topic is going to be about Wildcard Weekend and two teams in particular. But first of all, I want to congratulate Detroit basketball. No, not the basketball team, but Detroit football team. Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, okay, the Buffalo Bills, and last but not least, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for winning their games. But tonight's topic is going to be about two games in particular. One is going to be about the the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. And the other one's going to be about the Dallas Cowboys, and specifically the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, excuse me. Now, I want to first start off by talking about the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans, and the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. Well, first, I want to congratulate them and say that, look, I still don't care too much for the franchise, to be honest with you. However, they did the right thing. They got the right head coach, they got the right quarterback, and they turned around their franchise. But this rant is going to be a little bit more about the Cleveland Browns. Because in a lot of ways, now everyone knows that I am a Jets fan. And I'm going to come with a video in the future on how to evaluate quarterbacks. How do I determine which quarterback is going to be good, which quarterback is not going to be so good? And there's a lot that's at play, but that's going to be a video for another day. But this is going to be specifically some disturbing things that went on for the last month about the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns is a lot like the New York Jets. What do you mean? Both franchises have great fan bases, passionate fan bases, but they're no more for their losing than their winning. So we're just going to keep it real. I'm a Jets fan, so I'm speaking, with honesty. And I remember my dad and cousin, because I was getting so fed up with the Jets and their stupid ways of doing things, or let me put the word dumb, because stupid is such, an ugly term. But they gave me the opportunity to switch teams. And if I was going to switch teams, I was going to switch to the Cleveland Browns. But I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't leave my Jets, because when you're a fan of a team, you're a fan of a team. It's just the reality. So, but they have a lot of similarities. They're accustomed to losing. Their quarterback play is spotty at best. They neither team, including the Bears. I'm gonna throw all three teams in there, but the Bears have a better history of winning than both the Jets and Cleveland does. But these are three teams that are not known for winning a lot. Also spotty quarterback play at best, and yada 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 yada. So anyway, the Cleveland, what was really bothering me the last month, and I started to say something on it, but I said, no, I'll wait, because I want to see how far this goes before I comment. But there was a quarterback by the name of Joe Flacco who played for the Cleveland Browns this wild card weekend for the Cleveland Browns against the Houston Texans. Now, if you know Flacco, and I'm not going to disrespect him, I actually like Flacco. I'm a fan of Flacco. No issues with him. He was never an elite quarterback, though he did help his team win a Super Bowl. And you can never take that from him. And he was a major reason why they won a Super Bowl that year. Well, he got hot in the postseason. He betted on himself, got hot in the postseason, got hot. He was hot in that Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl, and if I'm correct, he was Super Bowl MVP. And so you can't take that from him. But that was the highlight of his career. Ever since then, well, even before then and after then, his career was meddling at best, or middling, however you want to pronounce it. Meddling at best, just also ran. He was okay. Not good, not bad. He was okay. So Baltimore ultimately moved off of him. Last year, the last couple of years, he was with the Jets. So I got to see him up, close, as a Jet fan. And he was not very good. Then he goes, but he would throw for a lot of yards when he did play. That was one thing Flacco would do. He would throw for a lot of yards. But the one thing, if you know about Joe Flacco, is he is mistake prone. He will turn the ball over, whether it's via interceptions or fumbles, but primarily interceptions. So anyway, Cleveland has Deshaun Watson. He was their starting quarterback. And people know how I felt about Deshaun, even though I do have some issues with Deshaun. But people know generally how I felt about Deshaun. I am a fan of him. But I always try to put aside my fandom and look at things objectively because I try to be fair. And if the guy that I'm a fan of isn't playing up the way I think he should be playing, I'm going to be critical of him. That's just how I am. While some people who are fans of a player can't criticize that player no matter what. No, I don't believe in that. If the player that I like is not playing up to snuff, I'm going to say something. And before I go any further, I'm going to say this to Deshaun Watson. Bro, figure this out next year. Okay? You got to stay healthy. That's number one. The best ability is availability. I know what you're capable of. But you're no good on the sidelines in street clothes. They did not trade for you, gave you that contract for you to basically be in street clothes. And a lot of times during your tenure, you've been in street clothes, either due to suspension or injuries. No. Okay? You got to give that team their money's worth. Now, let me get back to what I was talking about. So anyway, so Joe Flacco comes to the team because they've had other quarterbacks, PJ Walker, Dorian Thompson Robinson, I think that's how you pronounce his name, DTR as he's known as, and then Joe Flacco. So they put Joe Flacco out there about late November or so, and all of a sudden he's throwing for 350 yards a game. And there are people in Cleveland, and not only the Cleveland, but also the national media. Well, Cleveland is now a threat because why? With their defense, and their defense was good. But now Joe Flacco, they got somebody who's got, yes, Joe Flacco, this is not 2012, folks, when he won his Super Bowl. Okay? If you go back, because I believe that's when he won the Super Bowl, that was a long time ago. Joe Flacco is not the same guy that he was back then. And the media started really piling on the Joe Flacco flowers, giving him his flowers. Not only the national media, but the local media too. They're in Cleveland because, I followed them quite a bit because I followed Deshaun Watson. So I try to keep up as to what's going on there, with their sports shows and things of that nature. There. And I like some of the guys there, like my man G. Bush. In particular, and I chat with him on occasion, these are cool people. But anyway, they were all giving Joe Flacco his flowers. Oh, he's been great. He's doing great. He's like a lifesaver and this and that. And I'm like, wait a minute, dogs. Yeah, the man's throwing for 350 yards a game. Yes, he got like 15 touchdowns in 4 or 5 games. But he also had like 8 interceptions. You're going to just ignore the 8 interceptions? The man was averaging, per game, like 2 turnovers a game. And anybody who knows football or sports, can't turn the ball over in the playoffs and think you're going to win. It doesn't work that way because the margins in any sport, but particularly football, is razor thin. The margins are razor thin between winning and losing. A play here, a play there. Okay? A turnover here, a turnover there. Like take Pittsburgh. They went toe-to-toe with Buffalo this weekend. Could have beaten Buffalo. Why didn't they? The difference in the game, Pittsburgh turned the ball over twice, Buffalo didn't. That was the difference. And both times, Buffalo scored a touchdown, if I remember correct. And how much did Buffalo win by? 14 points. And Mike Tomlin said, Mike T said, we lost because we turned the ball over. And that was true. Don't turn the ball over. See, turnovers, folks, get you beat. You can survive it in the regular season, having a high turnover rate. Because you play some good teams, but a lot of times the teams you're playing are pretty bad or lesser tier. So you can get away with it. But in the playoffs, oh no, you're not going to get away with it. And there was two games that I saw in particular, Joe Flacco here with Cleveland, and they were both alarming. One was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he threw multiple picks in that game, but they won because Jacksonville turned it over 3 times themselves. So, okay, you'll get away with it, and you'll win. The second one that I saw was the Chicago game. The man had 3 INTs in that game. 3. They should have lost that game. But because Chicago's offense was inept, that's why Chicago ultimately got rid of their offensive coordinator. Notice they kept the head coach, they kept the quarterback, at least for now. We'll see what they're going to do down the road. But they said that offensive coordinator, you're gone. He's gone. And they weren't even complimentary towards him. They didn't even give him the usual, we thank you for your service, the work, we wish you well in your future endeavors. None of that. Matter of fact, they even said you was the reason why they were losing. Go back and watch the press conference. But anyway, this is not about Chicago. But it's like, am I missing something? Yes, Joe Flacco has 15 touchdowns in like 4 or 5 games. And I get that that's like 3 touchdowns a game. Yes, he was averaging about 3 touchdowns a game, but he was also averaging 2 turnovers a game. But the public, the media, the national media, and the local media wanted to ignore it and pretended like that part didn't happen. And I said, okay. So when they ran up against Houston, now they played Houston back on Christmas Eve, which was December 24th, and they blew Houston out. The difference was Houston did not have C.J. Stroud playing in that game. Okay? He was not playing in the game, and everybody knows Houston's a different team with C.J. Stroud out there. So that whole week going up to the game, people was talking about, what Cleveland was going to do to C.J. Stroud in that offense and what they were going to do to Houston because of what they did to them a few weeks prior. I was like, okay, because why? History tells you when you play a team the first time, you can beat them and beat them pretty good. And that's what Cleveland did. But when you play them the second time in that same span, especially if it's a short period of time later, now they got some film on you. Now they're spending their time focusing on you. Wait a minute. And now the outcome a lot of times can be different. So this was, early in that first half, they were going blow for blow. Houston scored a touchdown, Cleveland scored a touchdown. Houston scored a touchdown, Cleveland scored a touchdown. So on and so forth. Then Cleveland started getting Cleveland couldn't get some stops. Houston scored a couple of touchdowns. A touchdown, and they were up 10 points at halftime. Now, 10 points is not an insurmountable deficit. That's just a touchdown and a field goal. So then Cleveland kicks the ball off to them to start the second half, and Cleveland's defense rose up and stopped them. Now, Cleveland's defense was not good early in that game, but they rose up and stopped them. Then Houston punts the ball to Cleveland. Cleveland is driving down the field. They're in field goal range at minimum. can go for a touchdown, and then that's when the game got away. Because Joe Flacco became Joe Flacco, the New York Jets version of Joe Flacco. He had 2 crippling turnovers where he threw interceptions that was ran back to the house, pick sixes as they call it, ran back to the house, game over. Because now it went from being down 10 to being down 24. Big difference. And Cleveland ultimately never recovered. And so now the Cleveland media wants to kind of put the blame and say, well, the defense cost them the game. No, the defense didn't cost them the game. The defense didn't help matters, but they didn't cost them the game. Flacco cost them the game. That's just the reality. Flacco cost them the game. Now, they can sit there and say what they want, but we all know Flacco cost them the game. Now, this brings me to the other game I wanted to specifically talk about. And this one was actually even more disturbing. And that's the Cowboys-Packers game. Now, I'm not going to look. First of all, I'm going to give Jordan Love and the Packers their flowers. Great game plan. They won. Yada, yada. Can't give them enough platitudes. But it should come to an end this weekend when they play against one of my other teams, the San Francisco 49ers. So, hey, it should come to an end this weekend. And I'll make another show after the divisional round. But this second rant here is about specifically the Dallas Cowboys. Every home team won this wild card round except for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys were heavy favorites. The Cowboys were dominant at home. They won like 16 straight home games, and they was winning by like an average of like 30, 35 points a game or something like that. It was they were just bullying everybody when they were at home. Then Green Bay has something to say about that. Green Bay came into their house, into Jerry World, and punked them, smacked them around, kicked them out of their own house. Matter of fact, this reminds me of a scene in, and my cousin Sean would know about this. But if you watch the Power series there on in Stars, there, but this reminds me of a scene in Kanan, which is the latest series of the Power series, where Kanan he's a young kid who's now into drugs, and he doesn't want to stay at his mom's place. So he's staying at his friend Fabulous's place. Or Famous, sorry, not Fabulous, Famous. That's what the kid's name is in the movie. I mean, in the show, Famous. The problem is Famous can't pay his rent because Famous don't have no money. So what Kanan does, he comes up with a scheme to get money. But anyway, so recently, Famous allowed the mother, Kanan's mother, to come into the house. Kanan's mother put a gun into Kanan's bag, did not tell Kanan, and told Famous to keep his mouth shut. So Famous obeyed what Kanan's moms told him to do. So Kanan took the gun to school. He gets busted with a gun. Now he's suspended, and now he's got to stay at his mom's place, and he's angry. But anyway, he goes back to the house to get some stuff and still conduct some business when Famous told him the truth, that that he knows who did it. It was his mom who put the gun in the bag. So he said, well, how did you allow my mom to put the gun in the bag, and why didn't you tell me anything? So Famous tried to explain it, but Kanan wasn't hearing it because Kanan already warned him, don't allow my moms into the house. But he ignored what Kanan said, allowed the moms, Rock, to come into the house. That was Kanan's moms to come into the house. And that's when Rock put the gun in his bag. So Kanan was so upset with Famous, he told him, you got 5 minutes to pack your bags and get out of this house, or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to you, and it won't be good. And Famous was like, but this is my place. Yo, bro, you got 5 minutes to pack your bags and get up and get out. He kicked Famous out of his own house. Do you know how embarrassing that is to get kicked out of your own house, to get punked in your own house? That's like a dude coming, and any man can attest to this. who has seen or heard about something like this happening. Another dude coming into your house, eating your food, having sex with your woman in your house. He's taking over your house. That's what the Packers basically did to the Cowboys. How do you let that go down if you're the Dallas Cowboys? You're supposed to be the Cowboys, America's team. Jerry Jones, every year, we're a Super Bowl team, we're this, we're that. That's no team's supposed to come in your house and do what the Packers did to you, especially a young Packers team. Especially when you were the heavy favorite. I can see if you wasn't a good team and the Packers came in your house and did that. That's one thing. You're not good enough. But Dallas was good enough. But somehow, I don't know, that whole game was just a weird game. Which now brings me to my next point. Now, what do you do if, because what do you do if you're Jerry Jones? And I'll get to Tua Tagovailoa. You know what? Let me talk about both of them. Tua Tagovailoa, who's the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, and Dak Prescott, who's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, excuse me. Now, they both had disappointing games on Saturday. But Tua's was inexcusable because you had a 3-game lead. You're playing for the Miami Dolphins. That means you're down in Miami. You know how the weather is in Miami. It doesn't get below 70 degrees. Okay, they consider anything below 70 degrees like a cold. Like it's a cold out there. Okay? So and not only that, he's a quarterback from Hawaii. So that tells you two things right there. But you had a 3-game lead. No, sorry. A 2-game lead with 3 games to go. All you have to do is win your games. And you win the division. Now you avoid that cold in Kansas City. Unfortunately, they collapsed. They lost like their last 2 to 3 games. Now, therefore, you lost the division. Now, instead of having a home game in Miami, which would have been a big difference for them, because they're like a track team, but not in the cold. In Miami, they're a track team. Now you got to fly to the Midwest, where you got these 30 minus 30. It was like -6 with a -20. With a -25-degree wind chill factor. That means it's cold. Everyone knew that Miami wasn't going to win that game. Tua wasn't going to play well. So what do you do if you're the Miami Dolphins? And I know I didn't early on. I said I was going to talk specifically about Cleveland and thing, but I just threw Miami into this because it just dawned on me. You got a problem because Tua is going into his 5th year. You've already picked up his options, so that means you got to give him this 20 to 25 million or whatever it is he's getting for that 5th year. He's going to get that. But what are you going to do after that? Because you're in a division and a conference. First of all, the division you're in, there's Buffalo. Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. Let's just get it out right now. Then you got New York. You got to deal with Aaron Rodgers. Now, again, but Buffalo and New York are cold this time of the year. And Miami doesn't do well, and Tua doesn't do well in the elements. Then you got New England. Now, New England wasn't good this year, but he didn't have to play New England in the cold. He played New England when it was warm. The schedule worked out great for him. He didn't have to play Buffalo in the cold. He had to only play Buffalo in the warm. He didn't have to play the Jets in the cold. The schedule broke out great for him, and he didn't take advantage of it. And so, and you don't do well in cold weather, but yet every team you visit in your division, they're cold weather cities. Then let's not forget Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. You see where I'm going with this? Most of the cities that he's going to be traveling into is cold weather cities. So he's the type of quarterback that has to have home field to do well in. Now, if I'm a team like the New York Jets, who's starving for consistent play at the quarterback position and just want my team to just make the playoffs on an annual basis, I would take a Tua Tagovailoa. I would take a Dak Prescott. And I would even pay the top dollar to them because why? When you've been having bad quarterback play for so long, you'll take the good quarterback play. Now that brings me to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, see, Dallas is in a bad position because here's why. Dak Prescott already signed when he signed his current deal. At the time of his signing, that put him in the top 5 of all quarterbacks. And everybody knows Dak Prescott is not a top 5 quarterback, never was. Now, let me start by saying this. I am for a player getting every dime he can get in any of these sports. I am for that. But you got to look at it but I'm looking at this from the organizational standpoint. Because, see, when you overpay for good talent or mediocre talent, when you overpay for it, it hurts the team. And especially in football, when you overpay that quarterback, when you're paying him like he's elite when he's not elite, or you're paying him like he's good when he's not good, it puts you in a position where you become stuck. And once you become stuck, it's hard to get out of that position. Because Dallas is now stuck. Because why? After the end of the season, and based off what happened against Green Bay just a couple of days ago, now he's up for a new contract where now they're talking about 55 to $60 million per season. And anyone who watches football knows Dak is not a $55 to $60 million per season quarterback. He's good. Here's when Dak is at his best. When he's only throwing the ball no more than 20 to 25 times a game. Look at his record when he throws the ball over 20 to when he throws the ball under 25 times a game, and look at his record when he throws the ball over 25 times a game. There's a big difference. Though the guys who if you have a bad record when you throw the ball over more than 25 times a game, you're not a top tier quarterback. Sorry, it's just what it is. And I don't necessarily believe, you got to pay him because that's what the market dictates. No, I believe in my market. Okay, there's the market and there's my market, what I'm willing to pay. So here's what I'm doing if I am Jerry Jones. Now, I don't think Jerry will do it because I don't think Jerry has the guts to do it. But if I was Jerry Jones, especially based off that performance that you had the other day, and it was not all his fault. He wasn't the reason they lost. He did not help them, but he was not the reason they lost that game. Dallas's defense was the reason they lost the game. So Dallas has a bigger problem than Dak Prescott. So let me not make it sound like, Dak Prescott was their big problem. No, he's part of their problem. The problem is I don't believe he's part of the solution. That's my issue with Dak Prescott. You either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. He's not part of the solution, so he's part of the problem. So I have to try to start eliminating problems. So here's what I would do if I was Jerry Jones. And again, it's going to be a bitter pill. Sometimes you got to swallow it. Early this season, before around the trade deadline, he made a call to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan there in San Francisco and say, listen, they was negotiating for Trey Lance. Now, these words came out of Jerry Jones' mouth. This is not Jermaine saying it. These words came out of Jerry Jones' mouth. I was not getting off the phone until I got a deal for Trey Lance. That means he really wanted Trey Lance. Well, if you're not getting off the phone without a deal for Trey Lance, that must mean you must consider Trey Lance a starting guy because you're not doing that for a backup. If you believe he's a backup, why would you? No, there's a line that I will not cross. And I'm not going to simply say, "Oh, I got to have a deal for a backup." No, you don't say that. You say that for a guy who you believe is a starter. So anyway, so I would go with Trey Lance. However, if Trey Lance is not ready or available for whatever reason, then here's what I'm doing if I'm Jerry Jones. Whichever direction Chicago goes in, because Chicago got two directions, and they're going to go in one or the other, but they will not keep Justin Fields and Caleb Williams with the number one pick and drive Caleb Williams with the number one pick. They're not going to do that. I don't give a damn what Chicago says. They're not doing that. Ryan Poles is not dumb, and that would be dumb. So that means he's either going to trade Justin Fields or he's going to trade that number one pick. Now, Dallas, if I'm Dallas, I'm going to try to get into one of the other sweepstakes. I'm either going to try to go for, now the problem is you're drafting towards like a 15, 16. It's going to be difficult for you to get Caleb Williams if they do offer up Caleb Williams. You're going to probably have to give up too much to get him. So let's assume you can't get Caleb Williams. I will try to see if I can move up some to get Michael Penix, because first of all, I believe Michael Penix is still the best quarterback in the draft. I know he had a bad national championship. He was bad in that national championship game. I will not even try to spin it any other way. He was bad. But I still believe he just had an off night. It happens. I will still take him right now over Caleb Williams for a lot of teams. Now, I'm not saying he's more talented than Caleb Williams. No, he's not. But he's more accurate than Caleb Williams. That he is. And the first thing you want out of your quarterback is accuracy. Okay? That's the first prerequisite. Now, Caleb Williams is uber talented. He is, to me, another version of Justin Fields. That's what he is. But we'll talk about Caleb Williams another day. Michael Penix and them boys another day. But I'm looking at this if I'm Jerry Jones. I'm gonna try to swing. I'm gonna make some swings here. Now you're gonna take a hit, whether you cut Dak Prescott or you trade Dak Prescott, you're gonna take a hit, a financial hit. I would go ahead and take the hit. I'll bite the bullet even if it's for 1 year. But I have to get me a quarterback who if you're trying to be, you'll say, wait a minute, Jermaine. Why would you trade Dak Prescott? But then you said if you're the Jets, you want Dak Prescott. It's real simple. It's called expectations. What am I expecting from my team? Dallas has Super Bowl aspirations every year. They're expecting Super Bowl. Dak Prescott is not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, not in my opinion. But for the Jets, I'm just looking for somebody who can consistently get me to the playoffs. Dak Prescott can do that. Tua Tagovailoa, if healthy, can do that. That's why I say, what are your expectations? So based off your expectations will determine which move I make. Now, if you're Dallas and you're satisfied with winning 12 games a season, getting to the first round, maybe if you luck up, get to a second round, then stay with Dak Prescott. He's your guy. But that's not what Jerry Jones is preaching every year. Every year he's talking, oh, I got a Super Bowl team. I got a Super Bowl team. This is the best team that I've ever had and all this, that, and the other. He's telling you that every year. So now with that kind of pressure, I don't think Dak is that dude. He's good, but he's not that dude. So you need to find somebody who is that dude. Now to get that kind of a dude, we're talking somebody who's elite level. And elite quarterbacks are hard to get because, listen, there are 32 teams, but there's only about 4, maybe 5 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm going to put the names, and I'm going to leave out C.J. Stroud because I need to see one more year of it. But he played elite level ball this year. But let me tell you the other elite quarterbacks. Elite. That means these are top of the line. These are guys who can put a team on their back and get them to, if not win a Super Bowl, if things go right. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes. He's already won 2 Super Bowls. Lamar Jackson. He's about to be a 2-time league MVP. When you're a 2-time league MVP, folks, you're capable, you're elite, and you're capable of leading your team to a Super Bowl. Okay? Josh Allen, I consider to be elite. He turns the ball over too much for my liking, but he's elite. Okay? So that's 3. Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow's hurt this year, but Joe Burrow's elite. Okay? Because if Joe Burrow was healthy this year, Cincinnati's a playoff team. I truly believe that. But he wasn't healthy this year. So, hey, they went Cincinnati. So that's 4. Can I think of anybody else that's elite? I can't think of any other quarterback that's elite. If you know of another name, you please put it down in the in the comment section and let me know. And please don't. And I like Justin Herbert, but don't put his name. He's not elite. He's not an elite quarterback. He's good. He's very good. He's a franchise quarterback. Okay, there's quite a few teams who have franchise quarterbacks. Dak is a franchise quarterback. Tua is a franchise quarterback. Justin Herbert definitely is a franchise quarterback. And what do you mean franchise quarterback? These are quarterbacks who can lead a franchise and can is capable of getting them to the playoffs, mostly on a consistent basis, even though Herbert only got there once. But he's a franchise guy. But just because you're a franchise guy doesn't mean you're an elite guy. Deshaun Watson was an elite quarterback, but now he's in the franchise guy. Until he proved he can get back to that elite status, I can't put him in the elite status, but he has the elite game. Because the last time that Baltimore lost the game, and I'm not talking about the last game of the season, they played all their backups. So they weren't really trying to win. I mean, they were going to win, but they didn't play their starters. But the last time when Baltimore played all their starters and was trying to win, they lost to Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson went nuts in the fourth quarter, 14 for 14, 150 yards passing, and all this, that, now, boom, on a broken shoulder and a sprained foot. Okay? A broken throwing shoulder. Just think about that, folks. That's elite level. That means he went toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson. The only elite guys. That's why I said to some Clevelanders that had Deshaun Watson been healthy, that outcome, that game would have been a lot different. I'm not saying the outcome, the results would have been different, but the game would have been a lot different because there's no way with Deshaun Watson they would have gotten blown out in that game. Because Deshaun Watson is capable of going toe-to-toe with elite level quarterbacks. But because you haven't done it consistently enough and you haven't been around a while, I can't keep you in the elite column. So he's in that right now, that franchise guy. But like I said, there's a lot of franchise guys who can lead a franchise. Aaron Rodgers, he's not in the elite column right now. He hasn't played elite ball for the last couple of years, but he's a franchise guy. But since he is a future Hall of Famer, I'll leave him in the elite column, but he's more towards the French, towards the franchise guy, more so than, hey, his better days are kind of behind him in my view. But because he's a 4-time league MVP, Super Bowl champ, guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer, I'll leave him in the elite column right now. But you get where I'm going. Elite guys are hard to get. They are hard to get. Not impossible, but hard. And so if you're Jerry Jones, because you got that Super Bowl aspirations, you need one of those elite guys. A franchise guy is not going to help you because you've already got that. You will have to luck up to win with a franchise guy, given your salary structure. But I want to thank you for watching another segment of the Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Have a good evening. And again, don't forget to subscribe and press the like button if you like it.